Hi everyone, this is Rev Kimmy. Thank you so much for joining us.
And I'm Dr. G, and this is Season 2, Episode 6, Madeline Kingsbury, Tipster Behind the Scenes. So, the case before us is the missing person case of Madeline Kingsbury in Winona, Minnesota. And I'm from Minnesota, Kimmy, and I've only been down to Winona twice. How did you get involved in this case?
Well, I had never even heard of Madeline Kingsbury. I never heard of the case or that she was missing. Somebody on Facebook contacted me because they know about my history of my successes using my Christian Reverend prophetic gift on cases.
Okay.
So she contacted me and she told me about the case and asked if I could help. So I felt a connection, and I felt sorry for people, compassion, so I got involved.
All right. And did you get any feedback from law enforcement, from the sheriff or the chief of police or any of the law enforcement there?
Well, let me be specific. I never went in person. I was only communicating to them via email. So yeah, I got an email back from whom I was writing and communicating. Sheriff John DeGeorge. He is the sheriff, Fillmore County. And he wrote me and he said, I have been forwarding your emails to our investigators assigned to the case. We get many tips that come in by email and we review all of them. If you have information that you believe is relevant, please email it to me and I will pass it on. Thank you.
Wow. That's amazing. That's absolutely incredible. And confirmation from law enforcement that they're reading your emails and looking at them. And
you know, I do want to say one thing. I have a confidential reference, law enforcement reference, for all law enforcement throughout America who is kind enough that I CC and make him available for law enforcement, whomever I contact on cases or they contact me. He acts as my international law enforcement reference, and he is a commander at, like I said, he's confidential, so I can't say where. He is CC'd on all my emails, every single email to every case I ever work on.
Okay.
So he was emailed. He was, CC'd on all of these emails that I sent to the sheriff as well. And it was nice the sheriff forwarded my emails to the investigators.
And as I recall, this is not the first case that you've had active involvement or interaction with law enforcement.
I've had so many I can't even count.
You got started with Kristen Smart back in 1997, right?
Yeah, it's funny. I think that, I have a lot of cop friends and law enforcement, and they're really nice people. They're my closest friends. But some people who don't know me who are cops, and I've become friends with them, they don't understand that cops got me started doing this. They think, she's trying to be a cop or better than a cop, and us cops need the help. And, well, you know what? The cops are the ones who started me doing this. They're the ones who sought me out. Yeah, it was the initial homicide detectives on Kristen Smart's case who started me doing this. They sought me out. They called me. Yes.
Yeah. You didn't contact them. They
No, I did not.
You. And then
I never would have thought about using my gifts with this way.
And that was in 1997.
Yes.
And then they reached out again to you.
In 2001 on Kristen Smart's case. Yes.
Okay.
A different detective, yes, of Kristen Smart's case. But many detectives have. Many. Over at one of the main detectives who handled the reinvestigation of Natalie Wood's case called me and asked for my assistance on one of his other cases. So I have a reputation within law enforcement. People have no idea, they need to learn some things,
Right.
I have a good reputation. I'm not trying to say, I'm better than the cops. but cops come to me looking for help.
Okay. And besides your prophetic gifts, you're pretty well grounded in this whole legal stuff, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm a litigation and trial paralegal, over 30 years at the top law firms of our country, and working among the most known attorneys, such as Robert Shapiro, who handled the O.J. Simpson criminal case, as well as Ken Starr, you know who he is, right? He handled the Monica Lewinsky case, and so many other amazing known attorneys.
Okay. And for listeners who aren't familiar with me, I am a criminal justice professor. I'm a forensic victimologist, and I have written on that topic, as well as done some time on television with similar type stuff in forensics. So
yeah, he had his own TV show on Oxygen, Smiley Face Killers, The Hunt for Justice. You can find him now on Prime Video. Also, he's written books.
Yeah.
Just to sum it up really fast.
Yeah. So, anyway, we're going to approach this from the gift side and then the facts. I'll restate the facts. And I also teach crime mapping and criminal profiling, so we'll include some of that in there too. The case before us, like I said, is in Winona, Minnesota. I hadn't heard of it until you mentioned it, and you didn't even know about it until that person contacted you. So out of nowhere, I mean...
Well, you know what? I still didn't investigate this. You know, the case, Googling it, I don't want to know information. Apparently, it was very big on the web sleuths. Mm-hmm. My friend was telling me that, who enjoys, you know, criminal justice and working missing person cases, and he told me he heard I was working it behind the scenes, and he told me that, you know, as a tipster. Mm-hmm. And he said that it was really big subject on web sleuths.
Yeah.
But I was unaware of it because I shielded myself from that.
Yeah. I'm in the same boat. I checked it out today for the first time, and it's like 26 pages.
Is that a big deal? I don't even know what's normal. I've gone in there once.
I don't know.
Onto web sleuths once.
I don't know. But,
yeah.
So anyway, Madeline Jane Kingsbury, 26-year-old white female, born in 1996. Very smart young lady, very educated. She is a clinical research professional at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. Everybody knows about Mayo Clinic. She had 2 children, a daughter born in 2018 and a son born in 2020. And she was last seen dropping off her 2 kids at daycare around 8:15 a.m. on March 31st in Winona. When she was reported missing, police went over to her residence and they found her cell phone, wallet, and the jacket that she had been wearing earlier that day. Rather suspicious. I mean, usually if somebody leaves the house, they take those things with them. So now, this is where you came in, Kimmy. They contacted you. She'd been missing for quite some time by the time you got involved, actually. What prophetic information did you share with the sheriff?
Initially, I had told them that it was a domestic violence situation and unfortunately included murder.
Yeah.
And I knew that right away.
Yeah, and you shared with me your correspondence, and I see here that you had 2 emails that you shared with him, one on May 21st and another on May 25th. And I want to stress to
2023.
Stress to our listeners that at this point, neither one of us had done any Google searches or, Bing searches or anything like that.
No, it would only confuse me. I don't need that information.
In fact, you told me don't look it up, and you went into praise and worship and did your thing, and I waited. I waited because actually I deal with the facts, so I really have to wait until the case is closed and go.
Yeah, and I don't know the facts, and just go into praise and worship, and wait on the Lord to show me and reveal the information.
Yep. And on May 21st, you said Madeline Kingsbury was murdered. This is a case of domestic violence and murder. I mean, how much clearer can you get? I mean, right from the get-go, you're telling them that. And then I see here on the 25th, then, you said that the murder took place at home. What else did you share with them on that day?
I think I gave him a description of the suspect.
Oh, yes.
And I described the suspect as a person that Madeline knew him very well. It was a male. Male in his late 20s to 30s, dark brown hair, and that he is over his BMI. I felt he had anger issues coupled with control and jealousy issues. So that's what I told him about the suspect.
Okay. Well, it's quite surprising. Folks might not realize this. We're often so afraid of strangers, but it's really people we know that are the most dangerous to us.
Yeah, that's what they say is that it's the last person who saw the missing person usually, right?
Yeah,
Let's say on Kristen Smart's case, for example, and so many others that we know, or in the alternative, someone who's nearest to them, such as a boyfriend or a husband or a wife or a girlfriend.
Yeah, I found a couple of studies for some statistics for our listeners. And this first one is a study done from 1980 to 2008, so a pretty good spread of time. And during that time, Cooper and Smith wrote that they found that 1 out of 5 murder victims were actually killed by an intimate partner. Now, domestic violence and murder, they really go hand in hand. And domestic violence is a very broad spectrum definition. It includes all kinds of things. It's really sad. It affects an estimated 10 million people every year in the United States alone. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men are the victims of domestic violence, and nearly 20 people per minute is what that comes down to.
That's really sad.
Yeah, and it includes economic, physical, sexual, emotional, abuse of elders, children, everything, stalking. Domestic violence is, sadly, it really permeates our society. And your description, Kimmy, of that suspect, the one you saw in there committing the murder, is
I had
quite
a
frankly,
few visions.
Really accurate description of the primary suspect that law enforcement had at the time. And again, like I said, teaching profiling and looking at these stats about intimate partner violence, every time you watch TV, what do you see? The first person the cops go after is the husband or the wife, right? Or the uncle or somebody really close to the victim.
Mom, dad, or something. Yeah.
And that's where they started here. And you essentially just described the biological father of the 2 children, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's the ex. And you can read about him in the paper, but he's a white male, just like you said. He has dark hair. He is a little overweight when you see current pictures of him. And he graduated from Mabel Canton High School in 2012. He's about 2.5, 3 years older than Madeline. He has a bachelor's in management information systems from Winona State University. And I'm going to point out right now, and it's going to become very, very important later on, Mabel. He's from Mabel, not Winona. Mabel is in Fillmore County. Winona is in Winona County. Okay? So, moving on. Right there, so far, we have a couple of affirmations. You see the same suspect that the police are looking at that point. And this is way back in May still. All right? So, what else did you tell the sheriff on the 24th regarding what happened to Madeline's body? Where did she go? She wasn't at the house. They didn't find her there. Where did she go? What happened to her? And what else did you tell the sheriff about where Madeline would be found?
Well, I think preceding that one, on my email, May 21st, 2023, I said that her body was discarded when out and about while driving around. God showed me that she was not buried and that she was not in water. She was discarded, which means quickly discard her out of the car and just plop her somewhere, right? I just want to make that clear. When I use the word discarded, that's what I mean. I'm not saying buried in dirt, and that is, we all know, that's exactly how she was found, discarded, while driving around. And I've worked on many other cases with known homicide detectives, and they will say to me, well, that person could be anywhere. Well, that's true. Just of Madeline's case, she can be absolutely anywhere. She could be in water, she could be thrown, she could be in a car, she could be alive somewhere, she could be, right? I mean, I don't want to keep saying other things to upset people, but there's so many scenarios, correct, on a missing person case where that individual could be. But I said exactly where she was. Okay? And later on, I say that that he was driving on a road and drove off that road, and not too far off that road, he stopped and discarded her body near trees. Mm-hmm. Okay? And put through things, I said, or under something. Okay? Yeah. She's found under, I guess the brush. The trees were around exactly as I said, among trees. So, anybody who thinks this is a coincidence, you haven't really delved into missing person cases much. You should go out and start searching on cases from now on so that you can see and learn that a missing person could be in so many scenarios that it's limitless practically.
Yeah. According to the timeline that I found repeatedly in the media, and law enforcement really did a bang-up job again, like in many of the cases we looked at.
They were very professional.
They searched practically
They
everywhere
seemed like awesome
along the
people.
corridor between
worked hard.
Yeah, Winona and Fillmore counties.
Yeah.
They even went to the
and
old
all
Whispering
the
Hills
volunteers.
Girl Scout camp, which is over in Houston County, the next county over.
And how nice,
and
all those volunteers to go in there and help.
Yeah, as many as 1,500 volunteers were active on the ground. They used sonar and submersibles in the water.
Well, I would have gone out there to help them search, but I don't live in that state.
Search dog team.
And I do this for free, by the way. I use my own money on cases since 1997 in my own free time when I can be doing something else. So anybody who thinks I'm doing this for publicity or money, the cops are the first ones to say about me, she's using her own money for gas for years on cases, guys. You don't know me and you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So far for affirmations, you said it was domestic violence. That she'd be found in a remote area under trees on a hillside. And what we find in the media, and unfortunately, folks, they found her body yesterday afternoon, about 1:30. A Fillmore County deputy discovered the human remains in some brush, concealed and covered up in a wooded area, remote stretch of gravel road off of Highway 43, somewhere north of Mabel, Minnesota. Now, remember I said the primary suspect graduated from Mabel, which is in a completely different county and quite a ways south. And we'll come back to that, the route and stuff like that. So there again, all of that is affirmation of what you had told law enforcement. And there was one more thing about that. that really, really caught my eye.
You know, I want to
as a
say
crime
something
mapper.
I've never revealed to the public. I really want to say this, and maybe it's time. The cops know it. My law enforcement reference, the commander knows this. I have never disclosed this information to anyone else, especially not publicly. You know, we're talking about on Facebook advertising that we're going to come out with Madeline's story, right, the behind the scenes. And people are ridiculing me, a few, not much, a couple, and saying that I'm doing this for publicity. Do you know, like I said, I use my own free time. I use my own money, okay? I get no money donated to me. I don't ask for it because I have money, you know? I had somebody tried to kill me, okay? Was suffocating me on the ground. And if it wasn't for someone else jumping on that individual to save my life, I would have been dead. And I believe that individual most likely would have tried to cover his tracks and go dump me the same way Madeline was, or the same way Kristen Smart was. I'm not going to ever say who this is, this individual who did attempted murder on me, which is, it's a crime. But I have forgiven that person, and it was someone nearest to me, family. Okay? And just like we're, you know, with this criminal justice, right? This is what happens. And so this is why I do it, people. It's not for publicity. I'm already known within civil law as a trial and litigation paralegal. Why would I care about being known for this? I've already been there and done that in life. You know, I do this to help victims. Could you imagine actually really helping a victim for justice sake? Yeah. So the person also doesn't go out, the suspect doesn't go out and continue to do this to other people? And I can't tell family members and help them because they unravel emotionally, and I can't be involved with them. So I communicate with the police who are trained to handle the information I'm blatantly telling them. She's not alive, she's murdered, and describe the suspect. So this is why I help. Because I've been there. One little second more, I would have suffocated and died. Just a little bit longer, whatever it may have been. A few more seconds, I would have died. And no doubt, people try to save face and go and discard the body. So this is why I do what I do. And plus they ask me for help. People ask me for help. It's either the public or the lead investigator on the case, whatever it is. So anyone who says I'm trying to get publicity, I could care less about stuff like that. I share my story from my heart because this is what I believe in. And that's why I do what I do.
Yep. I could certainly comment on that with the cases I was involved in. Very, very similar. That's probably I can say that's one of the things that really drew us together, was my similar experience. A couple other things I want to point out is I'm just looking at my notes on this. Again, right from the get-go, you told them, very first email, this is domestic violence. And I see here in your email, you said, a verbal altercation. Maddie planning to move out and taking the children. She would not cooperate. Thus, it was necessary to get rid of her altogether. He took control of the situation with violence. That all.
And then the cover-up.
That all came to be.
The saving face.
Now, here's another one, folks. You put right here in the email on May 25th, is loading her dead body at the tail end of the vehicle. And it turns out that the vehicle...
Well, the Lord showed me a couple of visions. Do you want to hear?
Sure.
I mean, some things I might leave out. because I'm only going to discuss things that we can affirm from what law enforcement has revealed, because I don't want to mess up prosecution's case. So, but what I saw was, the Lord showed me that I saw the loading of her body in the van, that an altercation occurred, and in the home, and then transporting the body in the van. And then later on, a different vision, the Lord showed me that him driving on a road and then diverting, going off the road some, not too far, which I wrote to law enforcement, not too far off the road. Oh, here it is. He was driving, he pulled off, he pulled off the road, and I was telling them that not too far, and discarding her body in the trees. So to look for like a hillside area with trees, and look for tire tracks of any indication of possibly where a car had pulled off, which may be easy to do there in that area, right? Here in LA, that would not be. Yeah. But in that area, probably is good. There's not a lot of traffic around, right?
Yeah, and you've got, and there's a quote, not sure size of hill, but not a mountain.
Yeah.
And the first time I ever showed you the topography, street level view on Google, because being in the military and everything, I can look at a topographical map and I can tell where the fingers and the valleys and the ridges and all that are. And being from Minnesota and having been down there a couple times and been down to La Crosse quite often for my cases, I know what the terrain is like. And when you described it like that, and then I showed it to you, it's like, oh.
They were like small rolling hills. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Just high enough that if you're in one little valley or draw, you can't see what's in the next one. Just exactly the way you described it. Now, back to what you said about loading from the rear.
Well,
the vehicle that they shared was a Chrysler Town and Country van, a minivan. And, of course, it has the side door and it has the rear door. Yeah. So it's not like you didn't see a tailgate on a hatchback or trunk lid. You saw loading from the back of the vehicle, which fits perfectly. Again, another affirmation with the type vehicle known to be shared by that family.
Now, how do you describe an area that's vast that all looks the same? Trees. Well, there are trees everywhere. Yeah. How do I help law enforcement? It's pretty much impossible to pinpoint it exactly where, except for I really felt that she would be found in a 5 by 5 mile radius from his home. Yeah. Now, that's exactly where she was found. It wasn't from the location where she was missing from, which is the only address I was aware of. However, he lived somewhere else at some point, and she was found a 5 by 5 mile radius from his home. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to give address. Yeah. And so that's exactly where she was found. Is it 3 miles or 2 miles?
Yeah, this is I'm going to crime mapper.
Read this. I'm going to go on for this. Okay. Is it a 2 or 3 miles? That's all I'm asking.
About 3.
Okay, so 3 miles from his home. So that information is correct. And prophetically, I am saying from his home, not knowing he lives somewhere else. Okay? And so I said the long drive is his alibi to throw off investigators.
Yep.
Is that all you wanted me to share?
Yep. And here's the affirmation, folks. They have, and it's unclear from the media, but supposedly they've seen a vehicle just like this one, and it's assumed that after she dropped off the kids, that he shows up, and the father of the children, and he left the home in the minivan around 10 a.m. And then he returns back around 10:30 a.m. The vehicle seen parked out there again. So somewhere in there is when she's back at the house. He shows up. The vehicle's parked there. Now it disappears from about. Again, it's really unclear in the media, and it's going to be interesting to see what comes out in the trial.
You know, I wanted to say, here's what I say at my end of my email, dated May 24th, 2023.
Okay.
Suggested search locations. Check all hills from his house. 5 mile radius. Now, where's his house? What city is this again? Where she was found? Where?
Well, she went missing in Winona.
No, not that place. The other one.
Remember, he grew up and graduated from Mabel.
Okay, so it was Mabel. Okay, let me finish this. So what I'm talking about is 5 mile radius from his home, and this is where he was living at the time that she's found. So, I said 5 mile radius to see if he may have discarded around hills. I kept like hills, rolling hills. Logically, hills do hide a person when doing evil from any witnesses. One needs to quickly hide a body, and I said I do not believe buried, hence one would need trees to hide her body from being found. I do not believe she's in water. So I made it very clear as best as I could by email. And I've been in Minnesota years ago, but I know it's just all trees and it's flat and it's, how do you describe to these people to help them? Well, this is the best I could do. Yeah. Other than I told the sheriff I can go there. If you guys need me to go there, let me know. But they'd never said that, needed to, because then they found her. Oh, I forgot about the fact that I had a vision 1 week before Madeline was found. I had a vision in Costco, and I emailed the sheriff while I was in Costco.
Yeah,
do you remember that?
I remember that. You stopped, did that 1,000-yard stare. I knew what was happening.
Okay, here we go.
Better email him right now.
Yeah. So here it is. This, I am shopping in Costco. I cannot control my gifts. God knows I'm working on cases. He does what he wants. He'll give me prophetic dream when I'm asleep or prophetic vision when I'm awake. And it just happens whenever. I have no idea when it's going to happen or if it will at all. I mean, who can control God? So here it is, May 31st, 2023 at 5:16 p.m. I email Sheriff DeGeorge. And of course, my law enforcement reference is CC. Hi, Sheriff and investigators. I am at Costco shopping with my husband. I cannot control my gifts. God shows me things when he wants to. I just saw, and saw is in quotes, law enforcement will find Madeline Kingsbury. I see a tarp being thrown over her by a cop, putting over her body on the dirt. And so I feel trees are around the vicinity. I encourage you all to keep going. Don't stop. I will report more details if God shows me. Praying for you all. In his service, Rev Kimmy. So, that exactly occurred. 1 week from that email, almost to the hour. Didn't they find her like at 1:30 p.m.? But here it is at 5:30, exactly 1 week later. God is amazing. And God showed me that this is what was going to happen. He was going to cause this to happen. And if you notice, I said a cop. Do you know that a cop, not two, a cop found her?
Yeah.
On the dirt.
And not a citizen. Not a farmer.
Meaning,
a postman.
No, but I'm not saying, 5 cops were together and they found her. it was an investigator by himself, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what the media is reporting.
Yeah, and I have that, a cop.
And in fact, like I was saying, that they have witnesses that claim this van, or one like it, left Winona and drove down State Highway 43 to County Road 12, and then back over to Highway 43. So now leaving Winona County and going into Fillmore County, and was seen driving through eastern Fillmore County. Well, that fits. That's how you get down to Mabel. And I looked and looked and looked this afternoon, and you finally found on a news article a map showing where Madeline was supposedly discovered. And so I plotted that, as well as a property that we located for the primary suspect. And this is where I get another affirmation. You stated that it would be 5 miles, within a 5-mile radius from where he was living. And if I plot that farm, and then I plot the location of where her body was discovered, here's where it gets affirmation and crazy, folks. If you go down to the farm, the distance to As the Crow Flies, from the farm back to Highway 43, is only about 3 miles, okay? And I'm not going to give away the address where it was, but as the crow flies, the family farm where he was living is 5.4 miles from Mabel. But remember, Kimmy, you said the body would be less than 5 miles from where he lived. And if you draw that on the map, it comes out to be no more than 3.75 miles. So there's another affirmation. You had it correct. And if you look at that spot on the map, it's on a curve in the road. The ground drops to your front on a gravel area, which would be dirt. There's trees around there. You cannot see either one, any of the nearby farms, because of the hills in the way. There's a hill down, there's a hill up, you're on a curve, there's trees everywhere. You cannot be seen there. You could easily pull off the road. And it is about a good 46-minute drive, a long drive. And you said that in your email, that it would be a long drive to confuse investigators. And here you have it, a long drive all the way back home, an alibi, and the body is disposed of right where you said it would be, within 5 miles of where he lived, on a hillside, in the trees, in the dirt, not buried. And they supposedly found her covered. They looked and they didn't see her the first time. The investigator stuck to it, just like you said, don't give up, keep going, and he found her.
Well, of course they were going to keep going, but I have to say that from what I'm seeing, I serve God, not man. So God is showing me this will occur, it will come to pass. So then I give the word to the sheriff and the investigators so that they're aware of it, and to encourage them. That is everything, you're going to get resolution here. So keep going. But another thing I want to say is this email, May 25th, 2023, one of the points that I told the sheriff and the investigators, I watched online the video filmed about 5 days ago of the ex-boyfriend walking in the parking lot outside of court regarding child custody. He was walking with his attorney. And I do that a lot on cases. I will, to rule out people or whatever it may be that I'm doing, to read them. A lack of a better word, I'm not a psychic or a medium. I'm a Christian reverend. So I was getting a feel and to see what the Lord was showing me about the ex-boyfriend. And what God showed me was, I said, I see with my prophetic gifts a few things. Number one, I see that the ex-boyfriend will eventually be arrested and charged with the murder of Kingsbury. I clearly see him with handcuffs on and in the back of a cop car. Law enforcement must find enough evidence against him. to press the charges and to make arrests. So that was May 25th, and then when was she found? Yesterday?
She was found yesterday.
Yesterday, June 7th, 2023.
And the ex-boyfriend,
so that was weeks in advance.
The father of the biological children was arrested, and he will be indicted for Minnesota Statute 609, Section 609.19, murder in the second degree, intentional murder. Whoever does either of the following is guilty of murder in the second degree and may be sentenced to imprisonment for not more than 40 years. Causes the death of a human being with intent to effect the death of that person or another, but without premeditation. And there again, the statute and what he was arrested for, you said he'd be arrested, and that goes all the way back to the very first emails when you were describing the domestic violence and murder situation, that it wasn't premeditated. He showed up, they got into an argument, and he decided
at first I was ruling out.
End it with violence.
At first I was ruling out premeditation, but in that email I made it clear, if you read it, it's actually an event that just goes down. The altercation.
Yeah.
So this is sad. And I also told them, her cause of death, what I was picking up, which I will not disclose because I don't want any family member to be hearing this or loved ones, and I am not going to upset people. You will hear that from the medical examiner when that time is, but I won't be surprised if my information matches.
Yeah.
And this is a very sad story. It's unfortunately yet another case. This is just, people are angry and want their own way, and if they don't get their own way,
truly
they just
sad.
take it.
Truly sad.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty much covering everything, isn't it? And so we're going to hold up the family members in prayer. My heart went out to the father that I was willing to drive there if the sheriff felt that they wanted me to. You and I would have. And but they knew we were busy and they had enough help, I'm sure. So we never heard from him concerning that. But we're glad that they were professional, acknowledged me and my tips, and that they were reading them, and he was forwarding it to the investigators. And we don't know to what degree my tips helped, but one thing we can testify to is that my information that I gave in emails, in writing, do match the facts after the case was solved.
Yeah.
So,
and that does.
God is right again. It's not me. It's God showing me things, guys. And you know what I tell the cops is, I cheat. I'm cheat sheet. A cheat sheet. Like I cheat and get information,
Yeah.
It's not real hard for me.
God,
it's not like I'm brilliant,
God knows everything.
But God is the one telling me information.
To include the truth in the heart of the suspect that did this. And
so we pray for Madeline's family, and we're glad that her body has been recovered for proper burial. And it's another terrible story, true story, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that God helped, because He showed me it was going to happen, and it did. So that's God intervening, and we thank Him for doing that, so her family can have closure and a proper burial for her and justice.
Yeah. And we pray for law enforcement that they can wrap this up, and as you stated in your emails to them, that you predicted that they will prophesied that they will find sufficient evidence to bring closure to this and to bring justice to the family and to the children. And
Yep. So we're just like, applaud everyone involved, all law enforcement, all levels and counties. I think you guys are amazing. We watched the press conference. I mean, this is just, I really get upset. And so many people volunteered. I have volunteered for years on one case. And it's, it wears you out. All my free time for, I think, 3 to 4 years. I was looking for a dead body to help a cop who needed the help. And so I think it's really nice of all those volunteers to come forward and to help.
Yep.
And they did help, because one thing I learned on the case where I worked 3 or 4 years is that it's still helping law enforcement to know where you've searched is clear. Right? Yeah. Even though you didn't find the body, you're still helping because it's clear. The area is clear where you've looked, right? It's still helping law enforcement. It's still helping the victim and the family. So we applaud everyone who were amazing and diehards on this case.
Yep. And folks, please remember that, law enforcement gets such a rough shake these days, and there are a lot more really good cops out there doing a wonderful job to serve and protect us than the few rotten apples that get the media. And please support your law enforcement, especially when they come through like this for us and for families.
Yeah, I mean, look at the press conference, guys. Go back and look. Look at their eyes. Look at the sheriff's eyes and the police chief. They're exhausted. So we all should be praying for them to be restored now. Their energy and their emotions, they're people too. And that's very trying. No matter how much experience they have, it's still going to emotionally affect them. Because I've been involved with law enforcement chaplain stuff, and ministering to chaplains who minister to the police, and ministering to my cop friends. And it's not an easy job. Yeah. And so we need to pray for them all to be restored now.
Yeah. So, thank you and for listening. And in wrapping up here, I'd like to close. Can you please tell our, they obviously found this podcast, but can you please share with our listeners where they can find the evidence?
Well, I haven't put it up yet. Give me a couple of days. I've had the flu. I've been in bed for 5 days. I mean, this is really the first time I'm out of bed, guys, doing this podcast. Yeah. I have been in bed for probably 5 days. Today's my 5th day of the flu, right? Yeah. So give me a few days to get to my docuseries that's pinned to my Facebook, and I will put it in the comments. You will find the evidence so that you can look for yourself, and so you can read these emails for yourself. I will redact some information. You will not see my law enforcement reference email. You will not see some information which is upsetting to people, or that cannot be affirmed that law enforcement shared. If I feel that's responsible in protecting prosecution's case. So, And
you can find our podcast at Rev Kimmy and Dr. G at any place there is a podcast.
And if they want to write us,
you name it.
If they want to write us.
Yeah, if you want to write to us, it's Rev Kimmy, REVKYMMI dot Dr. G, DRG, at gmail.com. Rev Kimmy and Dr. G.
Yeah, you guys, I can do prophetic. I do individual sessions with people where they're personalized. Same way I work on cases, God will bring through words for you about your future. I'm not doing like mediumship. I don't talk to the dead. I'm not a psychic, but God does give insight to help you where possibly you need healing, or where you need deliverance from the past, or some kind of information prophetically that will help you. And so you can do that. And if you're interested, you can write me by that email address that Dr. G gave you.
Yep.
But on Facebook, I'm found as Kimmy, Kymmi, Bloomberg, BLOOMBERG. In fact, across the board on social media, that's how I'm found.
Okay.
Thank you so much for listening to us. And I think people call her Maddie. May Maddie rest in peace.
Yeah. Yeah. God bless you all. Thank you.